Welcome to another inspiring edition of the Brandi Jo Show, your weekly dose of wealth and wisdom for a prosperous financial life. And here's your host, Brandi Jo Newman.
Okay, so you've written a book. Tell me about the book.
So I've written several actually. My most recent is called The Man in the Arena. Actually, no, I just did one after that as well. We did How to Protect Yourself Against Bank Failures. So that's my most recent. Prior to that is The Man in the Arena. I've got Blueprint to Financial Freedom, How to Create Wealth, and then I've got a Big 3 Financial Challenge Journal as well. So we've got 4 or 5 of them. But
How long have you been in the? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the one that's probably in the mail on the way to you is Blueprint to Financial Freedom. That's kind of our main book.
It is. So that is, what's the target? What's the perfect reader for that book?
So the perfect reader on that one is going to be the family, the individual, the entrepreneur that is doing all of the right things financially, but they're not getting ahead, right? They're putting money in the 401k, they're saving all of their stuff in banks, they're paying off all their debts. And while those aren't bad things to do, it's not the way the top 1% do it. And so the book gives the paradigm shift of, it's kind of like, going to the gym. You can go to the gym and have a diet, and that's great. If you add certain supplements, it's going to enhance your progress. And so this kind of shares with people financially, what are those enhancement points, the things the top 1% actually have used historically. And it gives them the right sequence on, okay, this is what you do and when you do it, and here's the order that you go in.
Does the typical reader, do they implement do they change what they're doing to kind of gain a little bit more cash flow in the beginning? Because that's the biggest question that I get from the potential clients that I gather is, they're very unclear about the process. And, I've got videos and all that to take them through the process, so they're educated when they actually get in front of me. But what I find is once they start filling those buckets, what they're supposed to be doing, that it's very hard for them to change that behavior. Because they don't see it and they don't typically feel it, but they do have some feeling that they're not where they're supposed to be, because they are separating so much money from themselves and they don't get to enjoy the hard work and the toil and the trouble that they're going through to earn this money. Do you find that it takes them a little bit of lag time to change those behaviors?
Sometimes it does. I think for us, that really, it comes down to how well educated is the person. If they're brand new and they have a lot of fixed ideas, uninspected, like just put your money in the 401k because everyone says so. That's kind of an uninspected idea that they've adopted. So, if they're educated enough, they've kind of already looked into those things and made those conclusions of like, oh, okay, I don't think this is the best place to put money. Now, maybe they don't know where is the best place, or maybe they do know and they just don't know how to do it, and that's why they're talking to us. But if somebody is like, I want to get ahead, but I maybe don't trust yet the alternative solutions, for us, usually that's just education. Okay, cool. Let's get you more reading, video material, maybe some one-on-one consultation, whatever it's going to take to bring that person up to the point of, being interested in alternatives. So that's kind of what we see. We don't have a lot of that. Like by the time someone's coming into our funnels, they're pretty much on board. Like they're ready to do the things that we talk about, and they're very eager to get started. And if someone isn't, then we usually aren't going to advance them. We're going to keep them where they're at till they get up to the point of being ready.
Yeah. And what I have found is that, you just mentioned the amount of exposure and the amount of response that you're getting from the marketing that you're doing. It's so, and I've done several podcasts in the last week, and there's 2 things that keep coming up: that people are not changing their lifestyle, and they see the writing on the wall, but they're not changing their behaviors and their spending or their saving. They're still doing the same exact thing. And if we go back to pre-COVID, savings rates for average household, I mean, just the average savings rate for an American household was anywhere from 7 to 9%. During COVID, it was upwards of 30%. And I equate that to,
that was cool.
Yeah, I equate that to nobody could do anything. And they drank and they ate at home, which is the biggest wealth erosion factor that there is, except for children and weddings. Now they're still enjoying that savings to a degree. And I'm one of these people that I just don't trust the econ data that comes out of DC. But now there's writing on the wall that something is about to happen. Something is creeping in. The foundation is cracking, and people are just, the majority of people are just going about their business, doing the same things over and over again. But what I have found is that people that are seeking me out are looking for solutions. They're not looking for just information anymore. They're looking for, okay, I've got X amount of dollars in this 401k and this IRA over here, and it's not doing anything. It's not doing what the guy or the 401k service provider said it was going to do. And I don't know where we get these 8.5 to 10% rates of return in average accounts. I mean, yeah, you can get that in the S&P, absolutely. Yeah. But is everybody invested in the S&P? I think not. And so it's you've got to turn the mirror back around and have people, look at themselves dead in the eye and say, what is it that you're really wanting to accomplish? Right. And what is it that you really want to do with your life? That's why my little saying is money and lifestyle. I got started in the business in 1996. I was 23 years old. And basically I was just playing golf with potential clients at a securities firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. How did you get into the business?
I started in Primerica, actually. That's where I got my licenses back in 2011, 2012 as first thing I did after I graduated high school. So I was doing personal training and bodybuilding, and then I also got into financial services around the same time. So, that's kind of where I got my beginnings, and I learned some of the basics. I grew up very poor. So, it was not a thing where I had a lot of, even how do you handle debt or what is a budget? Like I was below even that level. So you start talking to me about self-directed retirement planning and, tax planning, or like that would be way over my head. So I got my licenses there. And then I progressed a couple of years into it and I went independent. I started actually working with Dave Ramsey as an endorsed local provider. And so I was an endorsed local provider for investing with him, I think in about 8 states. So we had clients across the US at the time. I had agents and advisors below me, and I was securities licensed at the time. So I was dealing in, the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, retirement accounts, term insurance was kind of the main thing we looked at there. And that's kind of where I got my start. And now it's funny because I'm polar opposite. I'm very into infinite banking concept, using whole life insurance, hard assets, self-directed retirement accounts. I don't do a thing with Wall Street anymore.
Yeah. So you were duly registered 763, 66.
I had my 63 and I was working on my 65 right before I got out of the industry. That was my next step.
Why haven't you gotten your 65? I'm actually studying for my 65 right now. So I was never a Ramsey or an Orman gal, and I was the bring them to the table girl. When I got away from securities and just focused on protection and life insurance and money moves, basically, compliance was just, it was a bear. I remember working in the late 90s that we would have to, just to send an email, we would have to get it compliance approved by the gal that was in the office down the hall. And it was
Wow.
so aggravating. And it was a pretty big firm. So what was kind of what was the pivot point or the paradigm shift where you went from them to us?
Yeah. For me, I would sit down, and it wasn't often, but I would sit down at times with clients where they already were wealthy, right? Like they had, money, they had assets, and they were never interested in what I had to offer. And I was sitting down and showing them, tax-free municipal bond portfolios and, growth and income portfolios and all these different things with all these, major Wall Street firms and companies. I remember even sitting down and showing, fixed indexed annuities and things of that nature. And they were just never interested. And it wasn't that they didn't understand it. I could tell they understood it better than I did. And sometimes they would ask me questions or maybe explain it back to me in a way where it was more clear than what I was saying.
Yeah.
And when they did it, it sounded like a bad idea. And I was like, okay, this something is not matching up. So I started studying the top 1%. This was probably in my early to mid 20s, studying the top 1% historically, and finally just saying, okay, what did they actually do? Like not what am I being told that they did, not what is the SEC and FINRA and the IRS and Wall Street telling me what they should do. It's what did they actually do? So I read the biographies of many different old successful, now they're dead, but wealthy individuals and families. And I actually studied like, what did they really do? And I would see common denominators. They were very big on small business. Most of them were actually very big on whole life insurance. That's one that I had to really wrap my mind around, having been a Primerica and Dave Ramsey guy. Life insurance was the devil. So those little things, I would see them, and seeing that they do a lot of hard assets, gold and silver, real estate. And when they were involved in like what I would call retail financial services, banking, Wall Street, etc., they were not involved as a consumer. They were involved as a issuer. Like they were the one offering that to other people. So it's kind of like, they were selling it, but they weren't consuming it, which is really similar to a drug dealer, right? Like he's going to sell it, but he's not going to use the product. So I saw those things and I started looking at, okay, well, I can see now there is a difference. And so in 2016, I actually gave my financial firm away. I had a colleague and I was like, hey, you can have my book of business. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I don't want it to be this. I don't believe in what we're doing anymore. I don't want to be involved in Wall Street. I just didn't feel like it was a real solution. It was more like retail. I call it retail financial consumerism. It's kind of like Starbucks or McDonald's for financial products. It's not really the best out there, even though it's fast and high volume, right? So that's kind of what got me over into it. And I started first with gold and silver. So I ordered some silver. That was my first experience of going from paper and digits to having an actual hard asset in my hands. And I don't know, there's just something about that clicked. Then I started learning more about self-directed accounts. So that was another one where it just blew, as a financial advisor, it blew me out of the water. I did not know that existed. I was like, you mean to tell me that the entire thing I was just doing, you could put the money anywhere? It didn't have to just be mutual funds and annuities. So that was kind of the next, step into it. And then I got into the life insurance, and that's the one where I saw a properly designed illustration, and it was a unicorn. It flew in the face of all of the bad things I was taught about whole life insurance. And I spent.
Remember the company?
The company, I think it was maybe Lafayette or Foresters or one of those.
Yeah. Lafayette did kind of a remake on their illustration software that just made it easier. When I was working with Nelson one-on-one in our workshops, he had Guardian, and I still have I want to say I have the third edition of his book, and that's the book that I use. He used Guardian illustrations in those editions. And then when I looked at a Lafayette Life illustration, it was just so much, it was simpler. And it wasn't predicated on so much of the non-guaranteed side. The illustration itself was a true $1 of base to $3 of PUA, $3 of cash. And when I first found Nelson in 2008, I was with Guardian, and you couldn't touch the PUA in their whole life 100 for 365 days after the policy was executed. So it was a no-go with Guardian. And shortly thereafter, it took us about 6 months. The partnership was already on shaky ground, and it took us about 6 months to find One America. And so then we started working with One America, and then I went independent in 15, and been independent ever since. I'm with, I'm doing some Penn Mutual now, Mass Mutual, still some Lafayette Life. I had a LinkedIn connection reach out to me a couple of months ago, and she got a cold call from, a registered rep, a guy that was trying to build his book. And he actually mentioned in the call, so he was going down his LinkedIn connections, and, she had her phone number on there. And so called her, and he says, I see that you're connected to Brandi Jo. I see that we're mutually connected to Brandi Jo, and, yada, yada, yada. And she says, well, yeah, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to work with Brandi Jo, not you. So she reached out, told me that story. And she has an existing mutual trust policy. And, not to bash on mutual trust, but it's just, they're just such a small company that they've kind of gotten overtaken by I would say the rest of the big boys that were able to see the writing on the wall and then start actually building better products, because now Guardian has a 1090 or a 9010 or something like that. And I've looked into it. I haven't placed anything. I haven't even done anything like that, but because most of the people that come to me, they have an incredible dump in because they're tired of the IRAs. They're tired of the 401ks. They cannot do anything with it. And they're in that pool of sheep. They're just getting slaughtered. And so what they're doing, they're taking it out and they're getting into, I had somebody the other day buy into an ammo vault, ammo, guns, metals, gold and silver, build to rent communities.
Wow.
Yeah. And people are like, and it's kind of a 50-50 toss up of the people that I've been talking to. It's like, well, I already have grown this so much. I don't want to lose it. And it's like, great, but what's tomorrow? If you're going to keep riding on red as the roulette wheel keeps going around, there's only so many times that you can hit, and then you're going to have a bad run. I think last year was just a precursor to what we're going to see probably in 25, 26, and 27. I really don't know what's going on right now. There's such a disconnect between what's going on in the market, what's going on with econ data, what's going on with the Fed. It's all of that. Do you advocate for, so someone comes to you, and I had this happen the other day. Someone comes to you and they say, okay, I've got $250,000 in 401ks and IRAs. I want to do something with it. And I asked the question, what do you want to do with it? I want to get into real estate. Okay. Have you invested in real estate before? Well, I own my home. And that's it.
Yeah.
And they're looking to me to coach them on, real estate investment. And I'm like, that's not my shtick. It's, I'm not going to be responsible for somebody's future like that, especially when they don't have the experience. So I advocate and I suggest that people get involved with study groups and stuff like that. Are you involved in any study groups or masterminds like that?
Yeah, so I've done some here and there. I'm a lot more of a self-studier. So I like to, for my own education anyways, I like to study old dead wealthy people. And so, and the reason I like that is because I can see from start to finish. You never know, let's take Elon, for example, Elon Musk. second
He's
wealthiest
not dead.
man in the
He's
world right
not
now.
old.
He's not dead. He's not old. He could drop the ball right before the end zone. Like, we don't
Yep.
know what's going to happen. Right now, I can go study John Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie, and I already know the story from start to finish. There's a lot of information out there about what they did. And the culture wasn't that we have today, where it's like we're trying to impress people and put up this, public relations and social media front. Like, they just, Rockefeller built an oil business. That was what he did. And then he got into banking, and, he uses the life insurance a lot. So you could just see those kind of plain Jane, not a lot of adding frivolous stuff to it to dress it up. So I like that. I think with masterminds, the reason I would go to that is to level up my network. I think that really is, study groups, masterminds, those types of things. Like, when someone is investing, and you kind of hit it on the head, Brandi Jo, is I wouldn't jump into real estate investing first. That's another asset, right? We teach our clients something called the triangle of wealth, which is very basic, but it's earn, save, invest, right? That's all it comes down to at the end of the day, is earn, save, invest. If someone does those three things really well and continues doing them, they're going to build wealth kind of regardless of what product or service they're using. And again, there's certain enhancements that will make it better. But, if you do those three basics. So when someone's trying to initially invest, like, their first investment should probably be financial literacy, right? And I think that's the point that's out, is people don't learn about money. They go to work, and then, before that, they do school and get good grades and go to college and all this stuff so they can get a good job, so they can earn a paycheck. And they're never taught, what is your paycheck and how does it work and what should you do with it when you get it?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of people leveraging when they first start out.
Yeah.
Because it's what was the triangle again? Earn, save, invest.
Earn, save, invest. Yeah.
The 20 somethings and the early 30 ages. My first question to them is, what's your reserves?
Yeah.
And they say, what do you mean? Well, what do you have saved? Well, I have $5,000 saved. And these people are making, like, I think one is making 175, and then it ranges from like 85 up into the low twos. But well, what if something happens? And they don't want to hear, take $50,000 and set it aside.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear life insurance.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the hottest stock pick? And I'm like, you're just totally already off track.
Yeah. Go on Twitter, like
TikTok.
Yeah.
I want people to build some sort of a business. Just like the other night, I had a little client appreciation whiskey tasting, and it's a young couple. They're in their late 20s. They've got some term insurance. They're getting out of debt. They're becoming their own banker very slowly but surely. And I said, have you done your taxes? Because, they had filed an extension or whatever it is these days. There's some emergency thing now. And she told me yes. And I had her send me her tax returns. And I gave her, this little PDF that I have that shows people how much they can save on their taxes. And so what she didn't understand when we first sat down was it's not paying taxes. It's actual liquidity that's created when you're not taking that money and sending it to the government. And I said, okay, let's think about that, and let's put that down on the model, and let's show that money going somewhere else. If you have a business. And she says, well, what would I do? And she does her own nails. I'm like, there's a business right there. You get your phone out, you get on YouTube, you sell something, you sell an ebook, you sell a video series, something. That's a business. And it's that simple. It is absolutely that simple. And so we're projecting next year that they're going to have $7,500 in free cash flow.
Wow, that's awesome.
Just by doing your nails on YouTube and TikTok and selling a little ebook. And that took about 6 weeks. Do you find that, and I'm just going to assume that like attracts like. So you're dealing with the younger generation, yes? So I'm 50. So I'm dealing with people that are like, oh my God, my next thing is I'm about to retire. What am I supposed to do? So that's the people that I'm working with. What's your typical client like?
Yeah, we get 3 or 4 groups. We definitely get, high income earners in their mid 20s to mid 30s. They're kind of single, or maybe they're newlywed. They haven't really started down the track of having kids and doing all of that yet. So we definitely have that as a demographic. We also do get the people that are in their, 30s and 40s. They're married, they've got kids, they've got a house, they've got the cars, they're trying to do the 401k. So that's definitely a chunk. And then we do get some, not as many as probably you do, but people that are 50, and they're like, I'm looking at the numbers and it just doesn't look good. Like I've got $500,000 in my 401k. I'm sure that's a lot compared to other people, but I know the math and I know that that's not going to last very long.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ones we get. And then we also work with some higher net worth clients. And in the last few weeks, I've worked with a few family offices, and that's more, less strategy, more providing the service they need. They're very interested in high cash value life insurance. They're very interested in gold and silver. Those are the types of things where we might help them on some product-based servicing rather than a strategy.
Right. Tell me about your gold and silver offerings.
Yeah, so we basically do a couple of things. So I got very big into gold and silver in 2016. And one thing that I noticed was that in the gold and silver space, there's a lot of online retailers. And so when I started doing my research, a lot of those online retailers compete with a low price on the front end. They get you on the back end by selling your personal information and your trade history for money. And so that's kind of similar to Robinhood. In 2020, they were doing that as well. A lot of the big bullion dealers do the same. They also get you on storage, and then they also get you on sell back. When you're ready to sell, they're going to take a cut of the sale. You're almost never going to get spot price. So the group that I work with and kind of our setup is you can do retail, right? You can definitely have the same kind of a setup, but we actually do a membership where it gives someone wholesale access. So they're able to go in and actually bypass the retail setup, buy it as if they were a wholesale distributor or a dealer, get, dealer pricing, free storage, spot buyback guarantee on the sell. And then one of the cool things about gold and silver, most people don't know, is you can lease it out for income and you can collateralize and borrow against it. And in that sense, it works a lot like a direct recognition life insurance policy. I can put money into it. I can do a monthly, deposit if I'd like to. I can do dump ins. There isn't a MEC limit. So that's kind of the nice part, is I can kind of go unlimited as far as what I want to put in. But if I've got more than 10 ounces of gold, I can lease that out. I've got, typically 1 to 3% lease income plus whatever the appreciation is on the gold. And then if I get, up to about 50,000 is usually the minimum, I can do a simple interest line of credit against it. Very similar to like doing a policy loan. So I can tap into that tax-free. I can do the same banking system. The difference is it doesn't have the downside guarantee, right? Gold and silver both can go up and down. They're revaluation assets. So I need to offset a little bit on either more reserves in my policy in case there's a margin call and I need to go buy more gold or more silver to correct my loan to value, or I just don't borrow the max line. Usually you can borrow about 75% of the value.
So that's how you're cash flowing the policy. So if I'm, and I'm visual, so if I see the cash flow, I've earned, I have a reserve, whatever, I'm going to throw it into a policy. I'm going to borrow it out of the policy. I'm going to go acquire gold, and then I'm going to lease out the gold. And then the lease agreement is going to pay back the policy.
Yeah, you certainly could do that. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't usually do that on my own policies. Like if I'm going to do gold, I'll just go cash straight into gold. Mm-hmm. So it just depends for me on like, did I mech out my policies already? Or do I have room to dump it in? If I've got room to dump it in, I'm probably going to go to my policies before I do gold. If I've maxed that out, then I'm going to look at, okay, let me buy some gold and I can lease that out. But the goal would be like, for me, whether I'm doing a policy loan or whether I'm doing a gold or silver loan, I like doing seller finance real estate. So I'm not big on investing in funds. I've been burned in the past with private funds. And so I'm kind of out of that game. I like the hard assets. So we work with a company called Equity and Help. And that allows me as an investor to buy an actual property wholesale, usually foreclosure from a bank. Equity and Help fixes the property up, puts a family in it, puts them on a 20-year mortgage with me at 12%, and manages the property, the escrow, and the relationship. So I've got a hard asset there, but it's cash flowing at, I think last year, Q4 of last year, when they showed the numbers, it was like 13.5% cap rate. So that's great for servicing my policy or servicing my gold loan back. So I would prefer that, just because I want more income, right? The gold 1 to 3% is a little bit, but it's not 13 or 12.
Right.
If I can get that 13 or 12, I can pay that policy loan back a lot faster.
So you're partnering with real estate investors, right? Do you have access to the property?
You do. Yeah. I mean, you're a mortgage, right? So you can go visit it. It's a little bit weird if you show up on their doorstep.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can drive by and say, hey.
Exactly.
And what is it? Equity and what?
It's called Equity and Help.
What's the website?
I think it's just equityandhelp.com. And they've got a good book out on, they call it real estate philanthro investing. And that's one of the reasons I like it. It's equity and help. So obviously there's the investment side of it, but there's also the help side. So you're helping families and individuals that couldn't otherwise qualify for a mortgage. They're probably going to rent the rest of their lives due to income or credit. And that's actually more than 51% of America.
It is.
You're helping them get into home ownership. We've seen some lives change where the house appreciates, the family gets massive equity, the investor makes great returns. It's a win-win. So I really love that aspect, because, you know, all investments should generate a yield or a return. If they all do, that's kind of a level playing field. For me, the aspect of I'm also helping, I like that a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, entry to home ownership is at its lowest right now. It is incredibly difficult to find a bank to say, here you go. Even the VA loan program is getting a little tighter right now. And the fees and commissions on that program is just, it's almost evil. I had a client has not ever used his VA benefit, and we went and sat down with a mortgage company that's what their specialty was. And I get back, basically the base sheet for the loan, and I'm like, these people are making so much money. Now, granted, the rate is good. It's better than, whatever the Fed funds rate is right now. And I called the guy and I said, why are you charging all of these points and fees, especially on the back end? I said, because, I've been in the mortgage business. I know what you're making, but all of this is up front as well. And they have this beautiful venue. I actually had an event there for a Republican PAC that I run. And I'm like, no wonder you can afford all of this. People just don't, people see the rate and they see the monthly, they see the rate and the monthly payment and they're like, okay, that'll work.
Yeah.
Not knowing that all of the fees are then rolled into the loan.
Yeah.
And that's what they're paying interest on. And that goes back to financial literacy. The 51% level of people that are not in the boilerplate scenario of, I have 20% down, I have a 680 to 800 credit score, I can walk into any bank and get a home loan, and I make 25 to 30% of the debt for the home is within that income range.
Yeah.
I think that's great, but the majority of people are not able to do that. And we actually did a deal very similar to this. I want to say it was about 12 years ago. And in Texas, it's called contract for deed. We knew the home very well, and it was up for sale, and it was $275,000 on the listing, and I got them down to 72.5 because it needed so much work, and they were trying to sell it as a business. It was almost an acre. It was 2,800 square feet. It's a huge home for the little town it was in. But I put it on, I was in the 10-day free look period doing all of my inspections and everything. And within that 10-day free look, I put it on Craigslist and got somebody to give me 20% down. We did at the time, we did 8 3/4 rate and no prepayment penalty. The home increased in value over the 3 years. And then they went to a regular bank and got refied, and we got our money back.
Yeah.
And, just don't do that once. You just keep doing that over and over and over again. And that's, you can scale with dollars. You don't have to scale with doors. And that's where I think some people in the real estate business get a little wonky and get a little confused is, how many doors are they managing? How much can they scale? When the market does reset, am I able to get my cash out? Am I able to, refi when I need to refi? All of that kind of stuff. I like the end user, but the build to rent communities, it's kind of the writing is on the wall with the fact that people aren't able to afford, an entry level home these days. They need help from family. I have some friends that they help their daughter out a couple of months ago, with the down payment so they could have an affordable payment. And it's the thing that I say to people is, and Nelson talked about this in his workshops, that when a baby is born, start a policy.
Yeah.
Give them the advantage of not being behind the 8 ball with any kind of debt throughout their life. Because if that policy just generates, just on the base alone, you're looking at 18 years of growth with incredible compounding. Don't touch the money, give it to the kid and let them do whatever they want to do with it. And say, here you go. Here's your ticket.
Yeah.
And here's the book. You got to read the book.
Right.
Tell me, what are the steps to become a client of yours? What is the client experience like going through and getting to know you? And when is the actual trigger pulled that says, okay, you are a client?
Yeah, so we have, I've been fortunate enough to build a pretty strong team the last few years. So we have 9 or 10 internal staff, about 170 affiliates across the US, Canada, Puerto Rico. And then we've started doing a lot more, like I mentioned, content, advertising. So for us, usually someone's going to come to us either by way of social media or by way of a referral. And so when that's the case, one of the very first things we do is we want them to read a book. For me, that's a big filter. If someone is not willing to invest some time in education, I have no interest in working with them. One of my favorite comedy movies is the movie Idiocracy. Have you seen this one with?
I don't think so.
So basically, it's the idea that, like hundreds of years in the future, less intelligent people breed faster than intelligent people. And so the world is overtaken by less intelligent people, and they can't read, and they water their plants with Gatorade, and they eat fast food all day. And there's just this very stupid culture. And so, that there's some satire there, but it's a semblance of how some of the population can be today, where we want the easy way. And so with wealth, what's very different about my approach, and I think your approach too, is it's not the normal go see a financial advisor, tell them to stick it in the financial oven at 365 for the next 40 years, never think about it again, and hopefully it's ready when you come out. No, you're actually in control. You need to know this stuff. You need to actually have your hands on the wheel. If you're doing infinite banking, you need to earn income. You need to contribute to a policy. You need to be the banker, take loans, repay loans, make smart decisions. So reading is the entry point. So most of our clients, we're going to have them first read the book. Any number of, we have How to Create Wealth, Blueprints of Financial Freedom, How to Protect Yourself from Bank Failures. right? But that's the starting point. And then from there, generally it's going to be one of two routes. They're either going to come to us and say, hey, I read the book, I'm ready, this makes sense. And our first starting point with them is going to be, good, let's set up your very first policy. Everything we do is going to be centered around, your own bank. So let's start that process first. And then I've found, just as an entrepreneur, that acts as a very good filter. The insurance companies, they look at, medical, they look at financial background, they look at criminal history. Someone that can't pass underwriting with the insurance company generally isn't someone that I want to deal with anyways. It gets a lot of the problem clients off my lines.
Yeah.
So I found that people that have a lot of interesting background stuff usually are more needy as clients. And so that's something we like to use as a front end filter. If someone's not ready for a policy yet, we have a number of things. We have what we call the wealth potential analysis. So that's 100-question assessment that we put together that basically gives someone a graph on their finances. It shows them where they're proficient, where they're deficient. And that gives them a little bit more education on like, what do they need help with? And then we have a number of courses that they can go into. So for example, if someone is maybe kind of a lower income and they're not ready to do a policy yet, we have something called the Big 3 Challenge. 90 days, that's a program we have where they, study on our online university at least 10 minutes a day. They do something to earn additional income every single day. And then they pay attention to their expenses every single day and actually rate those on a 1 to 5 scale to determine where those, proactive and, producing expenses, or were those more consumption or bad timing or bad ideas. So it gives them, at the end of that, it gives them financial literacy, higher income than they've ever had, and more savings than they've ever had. Now they can start a policy. So that's kind of our entry point. And then we're very big on education. So we have a Wealth Dynamics University platform for my company. We probably have about 500 hours of financial education in there. We have a dedicated client training supervisor. So when a client does their policy, we actually sit them down and put together customized curriculum on here's exactly what you should be studying. So you're learning not only about your policy, but what are your next steps after? Are we paying off consumer debt? Are you building those reserves like you mentioned? We tell people you should always have at least 6 months of living expenses minimum in your cash value. That we don't touch that. That's just there, right? That's dry powder. Or are we maybe investing or financing a car, right? Whatever that might look like. And then we walk them through our blueprint. That's the sequential, okay, step by step. Here's what you should be doing in order. In the correct sequence, right? And it starts with solvency, and then it gets into being properly protected and credit worthy. And then the next step after that really becomes kind of disconnecting people from the bad guys in the story, which are banks, Wall Street, and the IRS. So we go through and we help people self-direct their accounts. We help them with tax planning. We help them with estate planning, all the things that are going to be the gotchas where somehow, some way, one of those 3 groups is going to try and get their hands on this individual's assets and money. We kind of guard and defend against that. And once that's done, then we get into passive income investing. And that part is the boring part, but it's also the fun part, right? So passive income investing, like the seller finance thing, if that's working, you do that over and over and over until you're financially independent. There's no reason to go try something different. I do as many of those deals as I can until I've got passive income that exceeds my savings, expenses, and taxes. That's the long, narrow stretch, right? If I can just keep doing that, because the cash flow compounds, and every time if I'm running it through my infinite banking strategy, I'm able to get there a lot sooner. And then once someone's financially independent, that's where, if you want to go do some foreign currency trading, try that out. If you want to do some private equity investing, try that out. But those are things you do after you're already wealthy, after you're already financially independent, right? Because you can lose in those. And you don't want to lose and progress backwards where you're no longer financially free because of it. So that's kind of the sequence. And so our staff does a lot of educating, a lot of servicing. We've got a lot of different strategic vendor and partner relationships. So every step along the way, if there's a need, we typically have a way to fill that need with the client and keep them moving and making progress.
Awesome. How old are you?
I turned 31. Yeah, 31 this month.
This is great. You have, you've peeled back the layers for the general public. And it's just, you and I vibe on the same frequency. The Stansberries, the Agora Financials, the Motley Fools, the Jim Cramers of the world. I don't think they're helping very many people. And I'm going to dive into your resources here. It's incredible. And and frankly speaking, I think we should partner together. Because again, bring them to the table, girl. I'm not a big, I don't really like getting into the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't even like helping clients fill out an application. It's I don't get into the minutia. I stay at the 30,000 foot level. So it just makes it more interesting to me. And then I can see all of the money moves, and then strategize that much better for the client to give them more ideas. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got it figured out, and you've got a great, client acquisition process that's no pressure, that's very, it's easy to navigate, and, people are going to land where they want to land. They're going to make inroads where, they want to find the right knowledge and make the right moves for themselves. So good on you.
Yeah.
Very
thank
good.
you. Yeah. We definitely should look at some partnering things there. And one of the things that I think it's interesting, and you may have seen this, Brandi Jo, is that clients kind of want two different things at the same time. And sometimes these two things conflict with each other. A lot of clients, they want to feel like there's no pressure and they're doing it themselves. But it's kind of like when you walk into a retail store, everyone, the opening line, can I help you? No, I'm just browsing. Nobody's browsing. Like, people don't browse. You're there because you're interested in something, but they want to be left alone till they're ready.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's where the content and the education. So like, we're developing a personal finance app where clients can set up, their income, their expenses, their net worth, their debt. We've partnered with a certified financial planner. So they've plugged AI into it, and it will actually tell them, here's where you are. Here's your next steps. You can do it yourself. And when you're ready for help, click this button, and it's going to direct you to the person that's going to help you.
Right.
And so that kind of has been for us a solution on giving clients the leeway to consume and get educated and make the progress they feel like they need to make. And then they're going to get to a point where if we've added value, when they're ready, they're going to reach, and we just make that process easy for them and, outweigh that value scale. So when they're ready for the help, it totally makes sense for them to come do it with us. And I think that acquisition model really is where, the industry should be heading. It's no longer the old school, go make a list of your friends and family and call them up, or, the door knocking or the cold calling.
Right.
There's a lot more sophisticated, and to be honest, a lot more fun ways to do it. Being on a podcast for me is way more fun than, making 100 cold calls, hoping someone answers.
Absolutely. And then, if you're giving 99% of what away, there's going to be, a nice segment of the market that comes to you and says, thank you for what you have done. I understand where you are. I need to have you help me, because you can't get there. When I say there, you can't get to the financial independent point in your life where your passive income, to where your assets are throwing off a passive income that pays for your lifestyle.
Right.
You can't get there without products, without vehicles, without instruments, and they're all products. And not anybody can just go to a store and buy them. And that's why they need us.
Right.
And that's just, I've always wanted to be positioned this way, and you're 31 years of age and you positioned yourself from the get-go. And I'm so happy that you got away from the Ramsey and the Primerica people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's good. It's baby steps, right? It's
yeah.
Being on a budget, awesome. Pay off consumer debt, awesome. Beyond that, I can't say I agree with much more that group has to say on finances, right?
Well, and I'll say this, I'll bash on Ramsey real quick. He keeps people poor because net worth doesn't buy you a donut and a cup of coffee.
No, yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and it's all deferment. Like part of my story, Brandi Jo, one of my very first client was my mom. So, brand new in the industry, mom helps me out, signs up for an annuity contract, and she was probably 58, 59 at the time, right? So as we know, 59 and a half, that's the magic age. You can start accessing these things and withdrawing from them. So when my mom was 59 and a half, 60, she was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. Yeah, 6 months later, she passed away. And so I watched the whole thing, my very first client unfold and not work with the person, in my life, that one of the people I cared about the most, right? So I saw this deferment thing and I was like, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to put everything off till I'm 40 or till I'm 60. Paying off the house does that. Putting everything in the 401k does that. And so from the very, very get-go, I was, this little seed was planted on, what if it doesn't work? What if you don't live that long? What if you do all this work and don't get to enjoy it? And I think that that's something that a lot of people think of, but don't really realize there's a different way, and this idea of defer everything, it's a relatively new concept. The 401k has only been out since 1979. It's not even as old as my dad.
Well, and I'll say this, in 2014, Claudia and I took a year-long sabbatical to go and do what we wanted to do. And we basically went to 4 states and played golf for 12 months, almost 12 months. And I was still working. I mean, I was doing this right here. I can do this from anywhere. And that's the way that I choose to run my business and live my life. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she likes structure. She likes getting up at 5 a.m. She likes getting to the gym by 6, training people, coming home for lunch, taking a nap, and then going back and doing it all over again, Monday through Thursday. And then she wants to play golf Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would rather do that in different places along the way. But anyway, during that time, I was the happiest that I've ever been. And we got questioned all the time, and we were only 43 and 45. We were questioned constantly. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this way? You should be doing this. And I'm just like, don't tell me what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You absolutely never know. And I sleep very soundly at night knowing that if I don't wake up and Claudia wakes up, that she's actually better off financially with me not here, because I have so much death benefit.
Right.
And the fact that we get to enjoy, and I call it leveraging death benefit, because as we are infusing that cash into these policies, when we do use it for whatever we choose to, knowing that we have to rehabilitate the policy and flow the cash back through the policy, I am leveraging that death benefit, knowing that as long as I fuel the policy with the right amount of cash and the right amount of rehabilitation, that when I graduate, as Nelson used to say, that I am leaving the people that I love in a much better position than where they are now. And so that is essentially leveraging the death benefit for lifestyle today.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that concept, and it definitely, it puts people in a position where they're not only at cause and able to live life the way they want to today, but they're also the ones profiting on that money long term. If you look at, any of the deferment plans, back to the 3 bad guys, somehow the IRS, banks, or Wall Street, or all 3 of them, or a combination, they're going to use that money the entire time to build wealth. And their goal is to pay as little as possible back to the investor, to the client. So not only do I have the access to it, but I have the opportunity to then build that up for myself in the future, rather than losing out on that opportunity cost of, well, they're going to do it instead. Yeah. And a lot of these things are already happening to our money, right? When you look at the structure of using an IBC policy, depositing income, borrowing against it, lending that out, or investing it and earning dividends on that, that's already happening in the bank. That's literally fractional reserve banking. So it's happening. Do I want to be the one doing it, or do I want to be having it happen to me where I have no benefit and don't get any of the profit?
Yep. I love it. Jerry, thank you so much. This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Reinvigorating on a Wednesday.
For sure.
So will you come back?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be back on.
All right. I'm going to read your book, and then I'll follow up with you. I'm going to read it this weekend. I've got a 36-hole golf tournament, and so I'm sure I'll have a lot of wait time.
Okay, cool.
So I'll read it in between shots.
Awesome. Awesome. And reach out on any of the resources and stuff. We've got a lot of different ways we probably can partner up. So anything that catches your attention, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to give you info on it.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
My pleasure. Thank you. You too.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.